Now I've racked up more miles on the Trailmax Meridians over the winter, I thought it was about time I brought an update on how these tyres are performing. It's been about 8 months since I did my last review, and in that time I've ridden this bike in all sorts of weathers, on all sorts of road surfaces and off-road. So I think I'm in a good position to let you know how these Meridians have performed, and I'll do that by looking at the pros and cons of the tyres that I've found over about 3,000 miles. But instead of standing here talking to you in the garage or next to the bike, I thought I'd get out and give it a ride, and I can bring you my thoughts on these tyres whilst doing so.
And of course it does make sense to do the pros and cons out on the bike, and I couldn't have picked a better day for it. So let's start with the pros. First thing I noticed about these tyres was how quick they are to warm up. Not a problem on a day like today. It's 21 degrees. Having ridden these all through the winter, I had noticed that they get up to temperature pretty quickly, and they do give you lots of confidence. On dry tarmac, the grip is really good. They're really confidence inspiring tyre, and you can feel what's going on with them, and I'll touch on that on one of the other pro points later on. These are obviously a more road than off-road bias, which suits what I've been using this bike for. I have ridden them obviously in wet conditions, in pretty heavy rain, and I have to say again, very confidence inspiring. I've got no issues with the grip, but the performance of these in the wet is not that far dissimilar to how they are in the dry. The tread pattern dispels the water nicely, so even in really heavy rain where you've got to stand in water, I've had no issues with them at all. And in comparison to some of the other road tyres that I've tried, these stand up very well. No problems with wet weather performance at all. One other thing I like about these that I haven't seen is tram lining. That is a problem that I've encountered on a couple of tyres. The Metzeler Tourance, I think it had, on my one of my KTMs at 1050. They used to do that quite a lot. One thing that is immediately evident about these tyres, and I mentioned it in the opening review, is that they do have a stiff sidewall. Now this does make the tyres a little bit heavier than some of their competitors, but that stiff sidewall has some benefits, as these are what I would describe as a quick tyre compared to some other in this kind of 80-20, 90-10 kind of on-road, off-road I've found. These tyres feel like they turn in much quicker. They're much more responsive to changes in direction. They've got a nice roll onto them. They don't sort of feel like they're falling off of a peak into the corner. It's a nice consistent roll. It's a good profile shape, and I think the stiffer sidewall means that if you're looking for something on the more sporty side, or particularly if you're on a bigger, heavier bike, if you're riding a GS or a big Africa Twin, then you're really going to notice that stiffer sidewall when you start getting enthusiastic on the road. But it does also have a downfall, so I'll touch on that when I get to looking at the cons. Oh, a little bit of a Top Gun moment there, kind of. Now, I mentioned these are predominantly a road bias tyre, but they will get you through some decent levels of dirt, but they have their limitations. Now on dry gravel tracks like this and dirt roads, they've been absolutely brilliant. That sort of ice pick cut that they have in the tread, you can feel that giving you that little bit of extra grip. And if your limit to adventuring is this kind of dirt track to get to places, but majority road, these tyres are just a ticket. Again, you do feel like you've got lots of control on this sort of surface. It doesn't feel skittish at all. These tyres are good on the gravel and the dirt, as you'd expect. Any wet, muddy surface, you're going to really need decent sized lugs to get you through it, and these just fall down. I've tried a couple of wet trails like this. I mean, fortunately at the moment this is dry, but I've been through here just to try them when it's been wetter, and although it's not too bad, but as soon as you get you know, half an inch of mud, they are really difficult to keep the bike under control. But that's not a fault of the tyres, obviously. That's what they're designed for. If you're riding graded trails like this, they'll be perfect, because you're not sacrificing road performance to be able to sort of chump through here with confidence as well. Ouch. So as long as you stay in the dry off-road, you'll have no problems with these at all. Actually, another point I forgot to add in terms of the pros is the braking stability. Really good if you have to brake hard. The tyres don't throw up any surprises, and again, I think that's down to that stiffer sidewall. So that's really all of the pros. What about the cons? Well, as I mentioned earlier, one of the pros is also a con. The fact that these tyres have a stiffer sidewall means that they are heavier, so the rolling mass is that little bit heavier, but to be honest, you're probably not going to notice that too much between tyres. One thing you will notice is that the stiffer sidewall that gives you that sportiness and that kind of speed in the tyre and its turning abilities also means that you get more feedback off the road, which again is a positive. But I found with this bike, with non-adjustable suspension, just changing these tyres, the front feels a little bit harsher. Not a lot, but I can certainly feel more jiggle and more kickback from these tyres. And it's not something that's made me dislike the tyres in any sense, but I just wanted to note that that is noticeable. That stiffer sidewall does mean you feel more of the road, which is both a positive and a negative. For me, the speed of turning, the sportiness and the quickness of those tyres and the extra feel overweighs the extra little bit of suspension wiggle or jiggle that I get from it. So as I say, the only other negative really that I can throw at these tyres is that they're not going to be suitable for riding off-road in mud, which is the same for pretty much any of these tyres. So there's many more pros than there are cons, and to be honest, that's the way it is with a lot of modern tyres. It's down to sort of personal preference, I guess. The performance of modern tyres is so much better than they used to be, and it's down to choosing what you want. So if you want a tyre that is going to be used predominantly on the road but can take you off-road as long as it's not too wet, that warm up quickly and are that little bit more sporty, if you want to ride a little bit quick on the road, push the bike a little bit more, then the Trailmax Meridians I can highly recommend. As I say, I've had these on here now for quite some time. I'm ticking up the mileage all the time in them, and I've really enjoyed having them on the bike. To be honest, there isn't really that much more that I can add to that. So whilst I enjoy these beautiful roads for a little bit more, I'll hand you back to myself in the garage to give you my conclusions, look at the pricing and sizing and all that sort of stuff. So let's head back to me in the cave. And there you have it. There's my thoughts on these tyres. Really good tyres, and for the money I think they're pretty good too. It's hard to say when pricing tyres because there's so many deals and offers out there, and obviously these videos get watched in different countries. But in the UK I normally use 2 tyres as a good benchmark of where prices are, and currently for these tyres, the 21-inch front wheel, the tyre is about 135, and you're looking at about 155 for the 18-inch rear. So not the cheapest tyres out there, but by the same token not the most expensive tyres by a long stretch. But given the performance and what looks like is going to be the longevity of these tyres, I think that's money well spent. So I hope that's been useful. If you've got any questions, then pop them in the comment section down below, and all that leaves me to say is until next time, thanks for watching, take care, ride safe, and I'll see you soon. Bye.